I pulled into the driveway, the familiar sight of my home washing over me like a wave of comfort. It had been a long day at work, and all I wanted was to relax, have dinner with Lana, and forget the stresses of the office. However, as I opened the front door, I was greeted not by the warm, inviting aroma of her cooking, but by an unsettling sight that sent my heart racing. Lana was sitting on the couch, her back turned to me. But it wasn't her posture that caught my attention, it was the way she abruptly straightened up as I stepped inside. In a swift, almost mechanical motion, she grabbed her phone from the coffee table and shoved it into her pocket. The suddenness of her action struck me like a bolt of lightning. Why was she hiding her phone? "Hey, honey, I'm back," I called out, trying to sound casual, even though the knot in my stomach tightened. "Hey, welcome home," she replied, her voice a pitch too high, a tinge of nervousness that didn't escape my notice. She turned to face me, and for a brief moment, I caught a flicker of something in her eyes. Was it guilt? I shrugged off the feeling, attributing it to my fatigue. But as I made my way into the kitchen, the image of her hastily hiding her phone replayed in my mind like a haunting refrain. The way she had acted wasn't normal. It felt like a prelude to a secret I wasn't supposed to know. As I prepared a simple dinner, I couldn't help but recall the last few months, the oddities in Lana's behavior that I had brushed aside. There had been those trips she took without me, always with vague explanations. A girls' weekend here, a business meeting there. I had tried to be supportive, trusting her, and giving her space. But now, with the memory of her hiding her phone fresh in my mind, those excuses felt more like veils hiding a deeper truth. Hadn't she returned from one of those trips unusually late, her cheeks flushed and her demeanor unusually secretive? I had convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. But now, as I stirred the pot of spaghetti sauce, I felt the weight of those memories pressing down on me. The phone call she had received the other night, the hushed whispers as she stepped out onto the porch to take it. What had she been so intent on hiding? It was like a puzzle I couldn't piece together, the image shifting and blurring the more I tried to understand. "Everything okay?" I called out to her, my voice strained with feigned nonchalance. "Yeah, just working on some stuff," she said, her eyes darting toward her phone as if it were a live grenade. A chill ran down my spine. I had thought I knew her, thought I could trust her. But now, the very foundation of my marriage felt shaky, like I was standing on a precipice, teetering on the edge of a discovery that could shatter everything I held dear. I forced myself to focus on the task at hand, but my thoughts were a tangled web of doubt and suspicion. What was happening to us? What was happening to her? As I plated the food and sat down at the table, I realized I could no longer ignore the nagging feeling at the back of my mind. Something was wrong, and I needed to find out what it was. The following days blurred into a haze of anxiety and confusion. I found myself replaying that moment in the living room over and over, her hurried attempt to hide the phone gnawing at my thoughts. I tried to engage with Lana, but every conversation felt forced, like we were two actors in a play, each struggling to remember our lines. During our dinners, I watched her closely, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman I had fallen in love with. But instead, I found myself staring at a stranger. She laughed at jokes that didn't quite reach her eyes and smiled at me in a way that felt rehearsed. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't just suspicion that clouded my mind, it was fear. Fear that something had happened to her, something she was too ashamed or scared to share with me. Maybe she was dealing with a personal crisis, something that had driven her to seek solace outside our marriage. The thought twisted my stomach into knots. I contemplated the possibility that my imagination was running wild. What if there was nothing to be concerned about? What if she simply needed space? But then again, what if there was a truth lurking in the shadows that I needed to uncover? That's when the idea struck me like a sudden gust of wind, hiring a private investigator. I had never considered such an extreme measure before. It felt like something out of a detective novel, a leap into a world of secrets and lies. But what choice did I have? I needed answers, and I needed them fast. After a long, restless night filled with endless thoughts, I sat at my desk, the glow of the computer screen illuminating the darkness. I typed "private investigator" into the search bar and was met with a flurry of options. My heart raced as I sifted through names and reviews. I needed someone reliable, someone discreet. That's when I stumbled upon a profile for a man named Dave Thompson. His background was impressive, with a track record of uncovering the truth in complex cases. He had glowing testimonials from clients who praised his thoroughness and integrity. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he could help me find clarity in this chaotic situation. After hesitating for what felt like an eternity, I picked up the phone and dialed the number listed on the website. My heart pounded as I waited for the call to connect. Thompson Investigations, this is Dave, came a steady voice on the other end. Hi, my name is Henry, and I'd like to discuss a potential case, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the knot of anxiety in my chest. Of course, Henry. What's the situation? I took a deep breath, feeling exposed but determined. I think my wife may be hiding something from me. I've noticed some unusual behavior, and I'm concerned that she might be involved in something unfaithful. There was a moment of silence on the other end. I understand. It's a difficult situation. If you're serious about this, we can set up a meeting to discuss the details and see how I can assist you. As I hung up the phone, a mix of relief and dread washed over me. I was stepping into unknown territory, ready to confront the reality I had been avoiding. I scheduled the meeting for the next day. With each passing hour, my resolve strengthened. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. It was time to take control of my life and confront the shadows that loomed over my marriage. Little did I know, this decision would set off a chain of events that would forever change the course of our lives. The next day felt like an eternity as I anxiously awaited my meeting with Dave. I arrived at a small cafe downtown, my heart pounding in my chest. I had chosen this place for its anonymity, a quiet corner where I could lay bare my fears without worrying about prying ears. When I entered, the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the sound of soft chatter. I scanned the room until I spotted him, a tall man with a rugged demeanor, his dark hair slightly tousled and eyes sharp with focus. He was sitting at a table in the corner, a notebook open in front of him. Henry? He called out, standing up as I approached. Yeah, that's me, I replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, a reassuring presence amidst my turmoil. Nice to meet you. Let's grab some coffee before we dive into it, he suggested, motioning toward the counter. We ordered our drinks, and soon we were seated back at the table, the bustling atmosphere fading into the background. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. I was about to reveal my deepest insecurities to a stranger. So, what's going on? Dave asked, leaning forward slightly, his expression serious yet approachable. I hesitated for a moment, then began to speak, my voice steady despite the anxiety swirling within me. I've been married to my wife, Lana, for 10 years. Lately, I've noticed some changes in her behavior. She's been going on trips without me, and when she comes back, she's distant and secretive. Dave nodded, encouraging me to continue. I caught her the other day trying to hide her phone when I came home. It felt so suspicious. It's like she's living a double life, and I don't know what to think. My hands fidgeted with the napkin on the table as I spoke, the tension in my body palpable. Have you confronted her about it? Dave asked, his voice calm and measured. I wanted to, but I'm scared of what I might find out. I don't want to jump to conclusions. But I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. He scribbled a few notes. Then looked back at me. I understand. It's a tough position to be in. Can you tell me more about her trips? When did they start? I recounted the timeline, recalling the first trip she took without me. It was a weekend getaway with her friends. She's gone on a few since then, always claiming it's just for fun. But now I wonder if there's more to it. Dave listened intently, nodding as I spoke. What do you know about these friends? Are they people you've met? Most of them, yes. But there's one friend, Jessica, I've never met. Lana talks about her a lot, and they seem very close, I admitted, feeling a twinge of jealousy. Dave jotted down another note. I'll look into her as well. It's crucial to gather as much information as possible. Have you noticed any other changes in her behavior? I thought for a moment, recalling the small things. The late-night phone calls, the vague responses when I asked about her plans. She's been acting more secretive, more reserved. Like she's hiding something, and I can't figure out what it is. All right, here's what we'll do, Dave said, leaning back in his chair. I'll start by following her on her next trip. I'll gather as much evidence as I can, photos, videos, anything that helps shed light on what's going on. It might take a few days, but I'll keep you updated. I nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and dread wash over me. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate this. I just want to know the truth. He offered a reassuring smile. That's what I'm here for. We'll get to the bottom of it, one way or another. As we wrapped up the meeting, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. I had taken the first step toward uncovering the truth, even if it meant facing the pain that came with it. I was determined to find out what was happening with Lana, no matter how difficult the journey ahead might be. It felt surreal as I paced my living room, waiting for updates from Dave. I had never imagined that I would be in this position, waiting for news from a private investigator about my wife. The weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air, a tangible presence that made it hard to breathe. Just as the clock struck 3, my phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughts. It was a message from Dave. "Hey, I've made some progress. Can we meet?" I felt my heart race. I quickly responded, and within the hour, we were back at the cafe, the same table where we had first discussed my concerns. Dave arrived looking slightly more serious than usual, and my stomach twisted in knots. "Did you find something?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as he sat down. "I did," he replied, pulling out his notebook. "I've been reviewing some footage from different events where Lana might have been present." My palms were clammy as I leaned in closer. "What did you see?" Dave hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. "I found videos from a charity gala she attended last month. She was there with a group of friends, and I noticed her interacting with a few men quite intimately." I felt my breath catch in my throat. "Intimately? How?" He slid his phone across the table, showing me a still image from the footage. In it, Lana was laughing, her head tilted back, completely at ease. But it wasn't just her laughter that caught my eye, it was the way she was leaning into a man, their bodies almost touching. "Here, you can see her flirting," he continued. And this was just the beginning. I found more footage from different events, and it's all similar. Dave pulled up another video, and my heart sank as I watched. There she was again, in a crowded bar, leaning close to another man, whispering something in his ear. He smiled widely, and they shared a moment that felt electric, the kind of chemistry I had thought only existed in movies. "Are you serious?" I breathed, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. "This can't be happening. It gets worse," Dave said softly. He pulled up another clip, this time from a friend's wedding. Lana was dancing with yet another man, her movements fluid and inviting. They spun around the dance floor, her laughter ringing out as she playfully pushed him away, only to pull him back in for another twirl. Each video felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. I had trusted her and believed in our marriage, and now it felt as if everything I knew had been turned upside down. The laughter, the closeness. How could she do this to me? "I'm sorry you had to see this," Dave said, his voice gentle. "But it's important that you know what's happening. We can dig deeper if you want. But the evidence is piling up." I nodded numbly, feeling the heat of anger rise within me, battling with the cold despair that threatened to consume me. What do I do now? I can't just confront her without knowing everything. Dave leaned back, contemplating. "Take your time. Gather your thoughts. You could confront her with what I have, or we could keep digging. It's your choice. Can you keep following her?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "I need to know if this is just a phase or something more serious." Absolutely, Dave replied. "I'll continue my surveillance and update you with anything I find. Just remember, knowledge is power, but it can also be painful. Prepare yourself for what might come next." As we wrapped up our meeting, I felt a sense of resolution. I couldn't let this continue. I needed to confront the truth, whatever form it took. The videos opened my eyes, and while they brought me pain, they also ignited a fire within me to seek justice for what had been taken from me. I left the cafe, a whirlwind of emotions crashing through me, determined to uncover every last secret that lay hidden behind Lana's charming smile. A few days passed after my last meeting with Dave, and the weight of the evidence he had presented felt like an anchor pulling me deeper into despair. I spent every waking moment wondering how I had been so blind to the changes in Lana, so oblivious to the signs that were now glaring at me from every angle. Then, one afternoon, as I sat at my desk, my phone buzzed again. It was another message from Dave. "I found something else. We need to meet." A chill ran down my spine. I knew that whatever Dave had uncovered would only add to the turmoil brewing inside me. I agreed to meet him at the cafe, my heart pounding as I drove there, a mix of dread and anticipation swirling within me. When I arrived, Dave was already seated, his expression serious. He didn't waste any time. I found some messages on Lana's phone. I had access to her social media accounts and email. The conversations were alarming. I swallowed hard, bracing myself. What kind of messages? He pulled out his phone and began scrolling, the atmosphere around us heavy with tension. These are messages she exchanged with different men over the past few months. Some of them are quite explicit. I leaned in, my hands trembling as I took the phone from him. The screen lit up with a series of messages, each one feeling like a punch to the gut. I read through them, my heart racing as I absorbed the words. One message read, "I can't stop thinking about you. That night we spent together was incredible." My stomach churned as I realized this wasn't just a casual fling, it was an affair that had begun long before I ever suspected anything. I continued to scroll, each message revealing more intimate details, more lies. "When can I see you again? I miss you," another man had written, to which Lana responded, "Soon, I promise. Just a little longer." Dave watched my reaction carefully, his eyes filled with understanding. "I know this is hard to take in, Henry. But I needed you to see these. You must know exactly what's been going on. This isn't just flirting," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is betrayal." "It is. And it's clear that she's been leading a double life," Dave replied, his tone firm. "You deserve to know the truth. I'll gather more evidence if you'd like, but this paints a pretty clear picture." I felt my anger bubbling to the surface, threatening to spill over. I had trusted her, and she had shattered that trust into a million pieces. Why? Why would she do this? I asked, my voice cracking. "That's a question you'll need to confront her with when you're ready," Dave said gently. "The next step is up to you. You can either confront her with this evidence or let me keep digging to see if there's more." I nodded, my mind racing. I need to confront her. She can't keep lying to me. But I have to be smart about it. I don't want to give her the chance to manipulate the situation. Dave agreed. "That's a wise choice. We'll have to approach this carefully. You might want to gather your thoughts and prepare for the conversation. It's going to be emotional." As I left the cafe, I felt a mix of resolve and despair. The messages had confirmed my worst fears and ignited a fire within me to seek justice for the betrayal I had endured. I would confront Lana with the truth. I would demand answers for the deception that had infiltrated our lives. The road ahead would be painful, but I was ready to face it head on. I could no longer live in the shadows of uncertainty. It was time to shine a light on the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The days following my discovery felt like walking through a fog. Each interaction with Lana was suffused with an undercurrent of anxiety, as if I were acting in a play where the script had suddenly changed, and I was left struggling to keep up. I found myself questioning not only my marriage but also the very foundation of my family. My children, two bright lights in my life, were unknowingly caught in the crossfire of this turmoil. My son, Jake, was 13, and my daughter, Emma, was 10. They were too young to understand the complexities of adult relationships, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they might sense something was amiss. The air in our home felt heavy, charged with unspoken words and secrets that threatened to erupt at any moment. One evening, as I sat at the dining table with Lana and the kids, the tension was palpable. I watched Jake and Emma, their laughter ringing out like music, while Lana sat across from me, her expression distant. The juxtaposition was jarring. Here were my children, oblivious to the unraveling of their parents' marriage, yet I couldn't help but wonder, did they know? Had they picked up on the whispers of discontent? After dinner, I took the kids for ice cream, hoping the outing would lighten the mood and give me a moment to breathe. But even as we laughed and shared stories, a gnawing doubt crept into my mind. What if they had seen something, an interaction, a message, a look, that made them question their mother? What if they were somehow complicit in her deceit? When we returned home, I watched them run off to their rooms, laughter echoing down the hall. I turned to Lana, who was staring at her phone again, a habit I had come to resent. I couldn't shake the feeling that every text she sent was another thread of trust unraveling between us. "Do you think they know?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, laced with vulnerability. Lana looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Know what? About you and whoever," I replied, struggling to find the words. "About what's happening between us." She shook her head, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her tone. "No, they're kids. They don't understand adult problems." But I wasn't so sure. My mind was a whirlwind of doubt. "But they're perceptive. What if they see how distant we've become? What if they think we're about to fall apart?" Lana sighed, her frustration evident. "We're not falling apart. You're overthinking things. The kids are fine. They're happy. Are they? I countered, my voice rising slightly. Can we trust that? Or are we just putting on a show for them? The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. I realized then that it wasn't just trust in Lana that had been shattered, it was trust in our family as a whole. If I couldn't trust my partner, how could I trust my children to remain untouched by the chaos? What if they sided with her? Or worse, learned to hide their truths just as she had? The thoughts spiraled deeper, and I felt a surge of anger mixed with heartbreak. I had always wanted my children to feel safe, to know that their family was a sanctuary. Now, I feared that sanctuary was crumbling around us. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, plagued by images of my children and the innocence they still carried. I wanted to protect them from the darkness creeping into our lives, but I also needed to confront the reality of my situation. The next step was critical, one that would not only affect my relationship with Lana but also shape the future of our family. How could I confront her while shielding the kids from the fallout? And how could I rebuild trust, both in my marriage and with my children? These questions haunted me, and as sleep eluded me, I realized I was standing on a precipice, one wrong step away from unraveling the fabric of our family forever. I spent another agonizing week wrestling with my thoughts, each day feeling longer than the last. My mind was a battlefield, oscillating between anger, sadness, and the desperate need to protect my children from the fallout of their mother's actions. Each interaction with Lana felt like a performance, and I grew weary of pretending everything was normal. Then, one fateful afternoon, as I was about to head out for a run to clear my head, I received a text from Dave that sent chills down my spine. "We need to meet. I have new information about Lana." My heart raced as I read the message. I knew this was it, the moment I had both dreaded and longed for. With each step toward the cafe, I felt the familiar weight of uncertainty press heavily on my shoulders. When I arrived, I found Dave sitting in our usual spot, a grim look on his face. He didn't waste any time. "I've been digging deeper into Lana's activities," he said, his voice steady but somber. "And I found out that she spent the last weekend away with a man named Mark." "Mark?" I echoed, my heart pounding. "Who is he?" "He's one of the guys from the gala she attended, a businessman in town for work. They met there, and it looks like they've been seeing each other for a while," Dave explained, pulling out his phone. He scrolled through some images and then slid the device toward me. I stared at the photos. They showed Lana and Mark together at a cozy cabin, laughter shared over a glass of wine, their body language intimate and relaxed. In one photo, Lana rested her head on his shoulder, a smile lighting up her face, a smile that felt like a dagger to my heart. "This is from last weekend," Dave continued, his tone grave. "They spent 2 nights together." I felt the room spin, the world around me blurring as reality sank in. 2 nights? I whispered, disbelief flooding my senses. How could she do this? "I know it's a lot to take in," Dave said gently. "But you need to understand the extent of her betrayal. This isn't just a fling, this is an affair." Each word hit me like a punch. And I clenched my fists, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill over. I felt an overwhelming wave of emotions, anger, sadness, and a profound sense of loss for the life I thought I had. "What am I supposed to do now?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How can I confront her with this?" Dave leaned forward, his eyes meeting mine. "You need to be honest with her. You deserve to know why she did this. But also, you have to consider your children. They can't remain in the dark about this forever." I nodded, feeling the gravity of his words. I couldn't let my children grow up in a home filled with deceit. They needed to know that love should never come with conditions or hidden agendas. "I can't believe she would throw everything away," I said, the bitterness rising within me. "Our marriage, our family, it all means nothing to her." "Not if she's willing to risk it for someone else," Dave replied, his voice steady. "But remember, the choice you make now will shape your future and your children's. It's a difficult path, but you have to confront the truth." As I left the cafe, the weight of the world settled on my shoulders. I felt a mix of fury and sadness, each emotion fighting for dominance within me. The truth had been laid bare, and now I had to face the woman I thought I knew, the mother of my children, and the partner I had trusted. The decision to confront her loomed over me like a storm cloud. I knew it would shatter the facade of our family, but perhaps that was necessary. Sometimes, the only way to rebuild is to tear down the rotten structures that have taken root beneath the surface. That evening, as I sat with my kids, their laughter echoing in the background, I realized that my choice wasn't just about confronting Lana. It was about protecting my children and setting an example of honesty, even in the face of heartbreak. Tomorrow would bring the confrontation I had dreaded, but I was ready. I had to uncover the truth, not just for myself, but for the sake of our family. It was time to face the reality of what Lana had done and to reclaim my life and the lives of my children from the shadows of her betrayal. The night after my meeting with Dave felt like a heavy fog had settled over my mind. I sat in the living room, the glow of the television illuminating the darkness, but I couldn't focus on the screen. Instead, my thoughts spiraled back to Lana, her choices, and the consequences of her actions, not just for me, but for our children. I watched Jake and Emma as they sat on the floor, their heads bent together over a board game, laughter spilling out like a precious commodity in our otherwise tense home. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of nostalgia, remembering the days when our family was whole, when love and trust flourished without the weight of betrayal. But as I observed them, a shadow of dread settled in my heart. How would Lana's actions affect them? What would they think if they found out? I couldn't shake the vision of their innocent faces shrouded in confusion and hurt. My kids deserved to know the truth, but how could I shield them from the pain that truth would bring? My mind drifted to all the moments we had shared as a family, movie nights, camping trips, holidays filled with laughter and love. They were memories I cherished deeply, yet now they felt tainted by the reality of Lana's betrayal. I wondered how long I could keep this facade going, pretending that everything was fine while my world crumbled around me. Suddenly, I felt an overwhelming need to protect my children from the lies. They needed to understand what was happening, even if it meant shattering their perception of their mother. I recalled the photos Dave had shown me, images that captured Lana in moments of intimacy with another man. As painful as it was, I realized that showing these to my children might be the only way to convey the truth. Tomorrow, I'll talk to them, I whispered to myself, the resolution solidifying in my mind. They deserve to know the truth about their mother, even if it breaks their hearts. The next morning, as the sun crept into our home, I gathered my children at the kitchen table for breakfast. The air was charged with an unsettling energy, and I could feel the apprehension bubbling beneath the surface. They chattered about school and their plans for the day, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just outside their view. "Kids," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil churning within me. "I need to talk to you about something important." Their laughter faded, replaced by a concerned silence. Jake's brow furrowed, and Emma's eyes widened. "What's wrong, Dad?" Jake asked, his voice small. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "It's about your mom. I found out some things that you both need to know. Things that aren't easy to hear." Emma's expression shifted, confusion mingling with fear. "What do you mean?" I felt the weight of the moment, knowing that I was about to change everything. "I have some photos. They show your mom with someone else. I think it's important for you to see them so you can understand what's happening." I watched as realization dawned on their faces. "Photos?" Jake echoed, the concern deepening in his eyes. I nodded, swallowing hard. "I know this is hard to understand, but I believe you should see the truth rather than hear it from someone else. I want you to know what's going on so that you can make sense of things." With trembling hands, I retrieved my phone from my pocket. As I scrolled through the images, my heart raced. I could feel the gravity of the moment bearing down on us. I had to prepare them for the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I turned the screen toward them, my hands shaking slightly. "Just know that I love you both very much, and no matter what happens, we'll get through this together." Their eyes widened as they processed the images. Moments of Lana's laughter shared with another man, her joy shining through in stark contrast to the heaviness in my heart. The silence that enveloped us felt unbearable, and I braced myself for their reactions. This was the moment I had both dreaded and anticipated, the moment I would expose the truth, and in doing so, perhaps free my children from the web of lies that had spun around us. As the reality of their mother's betrayal settled in, I hoped to guide them through the pain and help them understand that even in the darkest times, love and honesty could still prevail. The atmosphere in our kitchen shifted dramatically as the truth unfolded. Jake and Emma stared at the photos on my phone, their faces pale with disbelief. The laughter that had filled the room just moments ago had vanished, leaving behind a suffocating silence. "Is this real?" Emma finally whispered, her voice trembling. She wouldn't do this. I could see the struggle in her eyes, the desperate hope that this was all a mistake. Jake's jaw tightened, his fists clenched as he processed the images. How could she? He finally spat, his voice filled with a mix of anger and betrayal. I thought she loved us. I felt the weight of their anguish pressing down on me, the truth a jagged pill that was nearly impossible to swallow. I thought so too, I admitted, my heart aching for their innocence. But this is what I found. I had to show you. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Jake shot back, his voice rising. We could have helped you. We could have done something. I didn't want to burden you with this, I replied, my voice cracking under the weight of my pain. You're just kids. I thought I could handle it. But you can't. Emma interjected, tears welling in her eyes. How could you let her do this to us? She's our mom. Their shock turned into a whirlwind of emotions, anger, confusion, and betrayal. The kitchen, once a sanctuary of family warmth, felt like a battleground, and I stood in the center, trying to shield them from the chaos that threatened to engulf us. Do you think she'll even care about this? Jake asked bitterly, his voice laced with contempt. She's been lying to us for who knows how long. What if she's been planning this all along? Jake, I know this is hard, I said, my heart breaking for him. But we have to confront her about this. We can't let her get away with it. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the sound of Emma's soft sobs. I felt helpless as I watched my children grapple with the truth of their mother's actions. They were caught in a web of emotions that no child should ever have to navigate. Let's just go talk to her, Jake said, a surge of determination igniting in his eyes. She needs to explain herself. I nodded, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. As we moved toward the living room, I could feel the tension coiling tighter. The time for honesty was upon us, and I knew this would be a pivotal moment for our family. Lana was in the living room, scrolling through her phone when we entered. Her casual demeanor was jarring, a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing in our hearts. Hey, guys, what's up? She said cheerfully, looking up at us. Mom, Jake's voice was unsteady, filled with a mix of anger and hurt. We need to talk. I stepped forward, my heart racing. Lana, we need to discuss something serious. The kids found out about Mark. Her expression shifted in an instant, the color draining from her face. What do you mean? She asked, feigning ignorance. Don't play dumb, I shot back, unable to contain my frustration. We saw the photos. We know everything, Lana. You spent the weekend with him. Henry, I can explain, she began. But I cut her off. No, I want you to be honest with us. You owe us that much. Why would you do this to our family? Lana's eyes darted between me and the kids, her facade cracking. I didn't mean for it to happen. I thought it was just a phase. A phase? Jake yelled, his voice trembling with emotion. You can't just throw away our family because you want to have fun. We trusted you. I didn't want you to find out this way, Lana replied, her voice shaky. I was going to tell you. Eventually. Eventually? I scoffed. How could you think that would ever be okay? You lied to us. You've been living a double life, and now we have to deal with this? Tears streamed down Emma's cheeks as she stepped closer to me, seeking solace in my presence. Mom, how could you? She whispered, her voice breaking. You're supposed to love us. Lana's defenses crumbled, and for the first time, I saw the fear etched in her features. I do love you. I never wanted to hurt you, I felt so lost. Lost? I echoed incredulously. What about us? What about this family? You didn't even think of how this would affect your kids. I thought I was making things better, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could be happy again. Happy? I repeated, my anger boiling over. At what cost? You're tearing this family apart. Silence fell over the room, the weight of her betrayal hanging heavily in the air. I could see the realization wash over her, she had lost our trust. Perhaps irreparably. As I looked at my children, their faces etched with confusion and hurt, I felt a pang of sorrow for what was lost. The family we had built together was on the brink of collapse, and it was all because of one person's selfishness. Lana, I said, my voice steady but filled with pain, it's time to face the truth. We need to find a way through this, but first, you have to acknowledge what you've done. No more lies. I turned to Jake and Emma, who were staring at their mother with a mix of hurt and disbelief. We're going to get through this together, but it starts with honesty. We need to find a way to heal, but first, your mom has to own her mistakes. Lana looked at her children, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was doing what was best for me, but I see now how wrong I was." As the weight of her words settled in, I felt a flicker of hope. The path ahead would be fraught with pain, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could find a way to rebuild from the ashes of her betrayal. The days following our confrontation with Lana felt surreal, as if I were watching the fallout from a terrible storm. The atmosphere in our home was thick with tension. The laughter and warmth that once filled the rooms were replaced by an uneasy silence. My children were grappling with the truth, their feelings of anger and betrayal festering like open wounds. Jake and Emma had pulled away from their mother, their interactions minimal and strained. They avoided her whenever possible, and I could see the hurt in their eyes whenever they were forced to engage. Lana, for her part, seemed to realize the gravity of her mistakes. She was remorseful, but her attempts to reconnect felt clumsy and forced, a stark contrast to the genuine love we had shared before. "Why did she do it, Dad?" Emma asked one evening, her voice barely a whisper as we sat on the couch together. "Didn't she love us?" I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. Sometimes people make choices that hurt those they love. It's hard to understand, but what she did was about her, not you. "It's not your fault. I just don't get it," Jake chimed in, anger still simmering beneath the surface. "She had us. Why would she risk everything for some guy?" "I wish I had an answer for you," I replied, my heart aching for their innocence. "All we can do now is focus on healing and rebuilding trust. It's going to take time, but we can do it together." As the weeks went on, I found myself taking on a new role, one not just as a father, but as a protector and a guide for my children. I wanted to help them process their emotions, to navigate the tumultuous waters of their mother's betrayal, and to ensure they felt loved and secure in a time of upheaval. In our quieter moments, I began to share stories about the importance of honesty and trust. I wanted them to understand that while we were facing an immense challenge, we could also learn from it. "Life isn't perfect," I told them one evening as we sat around the dinner table. "It can be messy and complicated, but what matters is how we respond to it. We have to choose to be honest with each other, even when it's hard." Through those conversations, I could see their walls slowly starting to come down. They began to express their feelings more openly, sharing their fears and frustrations. It was a long road ahead, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Meanwhile, Lana had retreated into herself, a shell of the vibrant woman I had once known. The more I observed her, the more I realized how deep her struggles ran. While her actions had shattered our family, I also saw a woman who was lost, desperately seeking something she had long since misplaced. I knew that, at some point, she would need to confront her demons. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, I found myself sitting across from her at the kitchen table. The silence was heavy, filled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. "Henry," she began, her voice trembling, "I know I've hurt you all deeply. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. I never meant to put you or the kids through this." "I know you're sorry, Lana," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But sorry isn't enough. You need to understand the impact of your actions. It's not just about you anymore." "I want to make it right," she said, her eyes pleading. "I want to be a better mother. I want to show the kids I can change." I studied her, weighing her words. "Change takes time, and it's going to be hard. The kids are hurt, and trust will take a long time to rebuild. You have to be patient with them, just as I'm trying to be." As I watched her, I felt a flicker of hope mixed with skepticism. It would take more than just words to heal this rift, and I didn't want to make any promises I couldn't keep. But I also recognized that, deep down, I wanted her to succeed, for the sake of our children and the future of our family. As the weeks turned into months, I focused on rebuilding my own life as well. I began to rediscover parts of myself that had been buried beneath the weight of our crumbling marriage. I reconnected with old friends, pursued hobbies that had long been neglected, and even considered taking on new challenges at work. In this upheaval, I also started to appreciate the strength that came from honesty. I learned that while it was painful to confront the truth, it was also liberating. I vowed to be the father my children needed, to create an environment where they felt safe to express their feelings and fears. The road to healing was far from easy, but as I watched my children slowly begin to open up again, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Jake and Emma started to engage with Lana, tentatively testing the waters of reconciliation. Each small step forward felt monumental, a testament to their resilience. As I stood by, guiding them through this journey, I knew that although the shadows of betrayal would linger, we had the power to rebuild our family on a foundation of honesty and trust. Through it all, I realized that family was not just about blood, it was about connection, understanding, and the commitment to stand by one another, even in the darkest of times. And together, we would navigate this new path, one step at a time.